This man right here, Steve Wilks, the San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, has endured quite the adverse-filled season, but he's been able to turn it around, especially after the San Francisco 49ers bye and all that stuff that was made from him going from the booth to the field. He's taken a lot of heat this year and from his own fan base, the San Francisco 49ers, just kind of based on how the defense was being managed. However, we have an interesting ranking of where he stands in the whole grand scheme of defensive coordinators, according to NFL players. So this came out from the NFLPA. They do a lot of these polls and they poll their players and they try to get a sense of the league because obviously kind of the current state of rankings is media based, which is journalist based, right? So you're getting a journalistic opinion on these rankings, typically where the NFLPA sources directly from players. So it's from guys who are obviously in the business, understand and know these guys and know what it entails to be a coordinator. So what the NFLPA did is they ranked over 1,700 players to rate and rank defensive and offensive coordinators. And Steve Wilks came in at number 2, the second best defensive coordinator in the NFL, according to over 1,700 players that voted on this. That's absolutely crazy amount of players in the league to vote for this. But the fact that he was able to get number 2 is pretty cool. Coming in at number 1, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. At number 3, Dan Quinn, DC for the Dallas Cowboys. Brian Flores at number 4 for the Vikings. And Raheem Morris, number 5 for the Rams. So Steve Wilks coming in at number 2. And I've already posted this, and I've already seen some of the comments. They're very split. Some are like, yeah, good job, Steve. You deserve it. Others are like, I'm not buying it. And so I want to try to contextualize what the 49ers defense has done so far and give Steve Wilks his proper flowers. Let's set the stage, though. Let's remember kind of this whole situation and how it's worked. This is not a normal situation for a defensive coordinator. This is a guy who came into the San Francisco 49ers organization and tried to learn their defense, not implement his defense with his own scheme and his own players. Obviously, that is pretty common for new coaches to come in, especially at the coordinator positions, bring some guys that know his system, bring other coaches that know his system, and then implement it. That's not what Steve Wilks did. Because we know D'Amico Ryans had so much success and he left, and you have so many good position coaches like Chris Kosurik, you have Johnny Holland, tons of guys on all around this defensive coaching staff, that what Kyle Shanahan wanted to do is try to find a DC who could fit into what they were already doing. So that's a challenge. That's not normal. So Steve Wilks had to kind of adopt the 49ers way of doing things and kind of find that sweet spot. And remember, this is his first season with the San Francisco 49ers. So it's been a tough task. And we know it didn't start out all that hot, especially during that 3-game skid where he saw a lot of adversity, at least from the fan base. I truly believe at one point that if you polled the 49er fan base, I would probably say over 95% of them would have said that they wanted Steve Wilks fired. So again, we experienced this fan base wanting to fire D'Amico Ryans. We've experienced this fan base wanting to fire Robert Saleh. So that's nothing new, but I do want to kind of contextualize what Steve Wilks has done from a defensive ranking standpoint to maybe kind of understand why he was ranked as the second best defensive coordinator in the NFL by over 1,700 NFL players. So if we go down the defensive rankings, starting at total defense, the 49ers total is ranked at 7. So 7th overall in total defense, 7th best defense in the NFL, according to the stats: 302 yards per game, 28 touchdowns given up. For example, the Browns sit in the one spot with giving up an average of 266 yards per game. But to counter, they have allowed 40 touchdowns to the San Francisco 49ers, just 28. The Ravens are actually the team that I'm looking at right now that have given up the least amount of touchdowns other than the 49ers at 24. So when it comes to touchdowns given up, the San Francisco 49ers are second in the league. So that's pretty good, right? That's pretty solid, I would say. And if we continue to go down the list of what the 49ers have been able to do, I think, the passing defense and third downs will predominantly be the 49ers fans' biggest gripe about the defense this year. But when you look at the 49ers passing defense and where they're ranked in totality, they're 15th overall in the league, giving up on average 218 passing yards per game and 19 touchdowns through the air. 18 touchdowns through the air. And as we talked about before, the 49ers defense has only given up a total of 28 touchdowns. So predominantly, most of them have traveled through the air. But to also kind of contextualize that even further, the 49ers have been up in a big majority of these games, meaning they've been in the lead. So teams are having to pass from behind, trying to get back into these games. So that stat might look a little inflated just based on the notion of the way the 49ers play complementary football and how the 49ers offense in a lot of these games has been up pretty big. And when you look at the rushing defense, the 49ers are tied for third overall in the NFL, giving up 88.5 yards on the ground per game. It's not bad, right? And they've only given up 9 rushing touchdowns on the season, which has them in the upper echelon of the NFL in that regard. For example, the Bears rank number 1 in rushing defense. They've given up 8 touchdowns on the year. So only 1 less than the San Francisco 49ers. Right now, the Ravens, it appears, are the best when it comes to giving up touchdowns with only 5, but they do give up on average 106 yards per game. So the 49ers rushing defense, again, has been playing pretty darn well. And so that's why I said at the beginning, I feel like most of the gripes come from passing and third down, because if you look at overall scoring defense, the San Francisco 49ers rank second in the NFL, only giving up 17 points per game. And as we talked about, only 28 touchdowns, which would have them as the second best mark in the league, where the Ravens come in at 24. So scoring defense, the 49ers are on top of it. Red zone defense, the San Francisco 49ers, again, find themselves in the top 10, actually right there at number 10, giving up a defensive red zone touchdown rate of 81.2%. For example, the best team in the NFL right now at this is the Titans, giving up a rate of 37.9. So the San Francisco 49ers still find themselves in a good category. The Ravens are giving up 40.4%. So as you can see, it's more than 10% from the top tier teams in the NFL. But the worst team, for example, is the Bears, who's giving up 70% touchdown red zone rates. So not the greatest for the Bears. So the 49ers still find themselves in the top 10. This, to me, has been my biggest issue with the 49ers defense is third down conversion rate. So right now, the 49ers rank 21st in the NFL, giving up first downs on third down 39.5% of the time. So honestly, this is where I see the biggest concern from the defense this year is just them giving up them giving up third downs. But for the most part, they've been pretty solid. They really have as a unit, as a group. The 49ers defense, and again, led by Steve Wilks, has them in a lot of good statistical categories. So whether we kind of get upset with, where they're currently at or what have you, I think a lot of people are still kind of getting over what happened earlier in the year. Steve Wilks has this defense playing really, really well in a lot of different areas. They're still in the top 10 with sacks. They're doing a lot of good things. So the San Francisco 49ers, although maybe not as dominant as we've seen in the past, um, they're still doing pretty good. And all things considered, Steve Wilks is trying to do something that we haven't actually really seen, or at least I haven't seen, in regards to kind of fitting himself into what the 49ers are doing. So the point of this is to be like, you know what? Steve Wilks is doing a pretty good job. I think he deserves the credit. And again, these players know much more than we do of what goes into the ins and outs of being a coordinator. Again, he's like the head coach of the defense right now, having to learn a new staff, new team, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And you've seen the 49ers make some pretty solid adjustments. There's just some things they need to execute better actually on the field. So I think it's warranted. But what do you guys think? Do you think Steve Young's ranked? Do you think Steve Wilks is ranked a little too high? Not Steve Young, that's Steve Wilks. Is he ranked a little too high, or do you think he should be a little bit lower? What is your thoughts on Steve Wilks being ranked the #2 defensive coordinator in the NFL? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.